Welcome to today's episode of Unapologetic Living. I'm Elizabeth Elliott and I'm your hostess. And as always, I look forward to bringing uh, really interesting guests to my show who are talking about, I don't necessarily things outside of the box, but looking through the world through a more holistic lens. And today I have the privilege of sharing space with Dr. Leslie Allen. She is a doctor of physical therapy, certified integrative lifestyle medicine, and then certified functional medicine practitioner. And she's the founder and owner of DNA Doc.
Hey, Elizabeth, thank you so much for allowing me to come on and be your guest and talk about some fun stuff today.
Yeah, no, I found you as I know we were talking a little bit before through your brother who is an oral surgeon locally. And I really appreciated the fact that, when I shared my concerns over my daughter's Lyme disease and an implant, that he was familiar and did not look at me like I had three heads when I was trying to talk
Exactly.
about how can we approach her oral health through a different lens, especially having the Lyme disease component. And
Mhm.
he mentioned you, but I think I'd heard your name before. Don't you do also something with like yoga therapy?
So, I am a certified professional yoga therapist, and I opened the Center for Holistic Healing back in 2014. Unfortunately, we closed the doors on that chapter during COVID. Kind of hard to keep it open. And at that point, I was already full time functional medicine doing a virtual based program. So, serving clients across the US. And so that's where I said goodbye to the professional yoga therapy and the integrative lifestyle medicine and went. I was already full time in functional medicine at that point, but I had other professional yoga therapists that I hired.
Gotcha. Because I think that was originally how I heard about you through another gal. I don't know if this name will ring about Monica Sweeney.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and that
Yes.
was like years ago. And I can't even
I
remember why
know.
she brought
So
it
long
up.
ago. I'm like, how do I know her? Maybe through Beauty Counter. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember that I think she sent me. I don't, or maybe it was Paige Pierman who sent me your
Uh,
information,
Yeah.
but
And
somewhere
I know
along the lines,
Paige.
yeah, where I
Mhm.
know that you're local like me, but different county, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and now I'm 100% virtual based. So I do get a lot of clients from word of mouth referrals from Oldham County, but really my largest I treat clients from California all the way to Boston. So some in New York.
So what made you make the shift from the yoga therapy and then the integrative lifestyle medicine into, I guess it sounds like mostly predominantly functional medicine?
Mhm. Absolutely. So my health, the
Yeah.
journey, I think that's many of us. It was quite the journey through my health experience. But I originally, for many years, as a doctor of physical therapy, I worked in home health, transitioning patients from the hospital setting back into their home. And so really reconciling a lot of medication and making sure that they were capable of, really being able to live independently in their home. And that's what we're there for, to help them to make a safe transition. During that period of time, I had a child, I had a near death experience, unfortunately, and it was really hard. So newborn kid, postpartum, all the things, my first child, and I was sitting home on 24 Percocets a day. So with a left leg that was paralyzed due to a massive blood clot, and put on bed rest for over 30 days. I mean, it was really hard. I went from being incredibly healthy to now all of a sudden, like, what in the world? This is not how I envisioned my 3 months of leave to look like. And it really just disrupted my entire life. And mindset, I was always an avid yogi, and mindset was my dog decides to say hello. Mindset was always, I knew it played a large role, but didn't really realize until there was a day when, 30 days in, and I'm on so many pain meds because all the things, my clot became infected. It was, no one could give me answers, and so it was a really kind of dark time in my life. And that is when I transitioned into integrative lifestyle medicine. So I did a 2-year certification program. And as part of the certification program, you had to do 3 1-week on-site intensives, and you had to like live the life of integrative lifestyle medicine. So we'd wake up in the morning to meditate to sunrise. We would eat anti-inflammatory and according to our dosha, which is, an Ayurvedic term, and just practice what you preach. So you get this immersive experience. And during that period of time, I am very much, a type A recovering perfectionist. And so, and always an overachiever, very productive human being, taskmaster. And at that point, when we were forced to sit and meditate, it was like, oh my goodness, how this is such a waste of time, right? So even as a yogi, it's like I could do my 5 minutes of lying there at the end, my breath work, but to put me in a position of not doing anything for over 30 minutes, to me was kind of a waste of my time. I could get a lot more achieved during that period of time. Nonetheless, so after I got certified, I started the Center for Holistic Healing. And at that point, getting a business off the ground, I had 2 young kids at this point. So, and working literally 24/7. My husband's in corporate America, and it was, and I am literally practicing what I preach. I'm teaching yoga, I'm doing my yoga, I'm doing my meditation in the morning. I had been organic since my first pregnancy, but I unfortunately woke up one day with 2 different autoimmune conditions, diagnosed same day, right then and there. Like, how does that happen? How can it happen when somebody? So anyhow, getting the runaround, I sought lots of different providers in the area. Worked really hard, but I could not get the autoimmunity under control. So that's when I decided to throw in the towel, go back, do a residency in functional medicine to get certified myself. So that's really, it's been my journey through my own experiences and not really getting the answers that I needed. Mindset. And I feel like in the integrative space for me and with my treatment that I was doing, it's great. Like, those are all the tools that you need in your toolbox to really heal the body. But where functional medicine came in is that I didn't actually know the why behind my condition and what was going on. And so, after seeing several providers and they're just throwing supplements at me or, putting me on these extremely rigid meal plans and things to that nature, I became anxious and depressed and, why is this happening to me? All the things. And so that really is my story and how I got
So,
to functional medicine.
so just to step back a little bit. So, did that initial, um, was that during like a childbirth experience when you go back to the blood clot? Like that was, I'm not going to say due to a
Birth.
medicalized birth,
Yes.
but the
Yes,
birth. Okay. Okay.
it was. And I have a genetic clotting disorder.
Mhm,
I'm fortunate in that most people aren't able to conceive naturally and
mhm,
carry the birth to full term. That's how most people will find out that they have this condition.
mhm,
Is that they'll have multiple miscarriages and then finally they'll do genetic testing on them. For me, I had a perfectly healthy pregnancy, and I attribute all of that to my lifestyle and exercising up until the day that I gave birth and, just being really healthy. But during the pregnancy, I also gave birth to a 9-pound baby,
mm,
huge, a very
mhm,
large baby boy. And so there were some complications during that pregnancy that I think, with his head being so large that it was kind of jamming into a blood vessel. And then
mm.
that led to the clot developing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now the focus, and what I heard was type A perfectionist, overachiever, productivity, do everything right,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
I think like just seeing some of the clients that I know, and then just hearing, and being inundated on social media with individuals talking about very similar scenario,
Yep.
doing everything right, can't lose weight, can't regain energy, tired, fatigued, hormone disruption. I know that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they started throwing around the word hypothyroid for me, and somebody else said maybe Hashimoto's. It's leaning towards that, and no one can really decide whether it is or isn't. And I think we are living in an incredibly stressful world. And I don't want to say some of it's self-induced, but I think that, and just being a fascial stretch therapist, like people don't know how they feel.
Mm,
Like they're not even that connected to their body to know, like, do you feel a stretch? I don't know. No, I mean, I'm
right.
serious, but like seriously.
Yep. Oh, I totally agree. And it's one of my largest patient populations. And I think part of that is because I am a cash provider now. I used to bill insurance, but so I tend to attract the people that are willing and to really invest in their health. But
Mhm,
they are largely the people that are doing everything right, and they're exercising, they're doing the high intensity intervals, they're eating so strict. I don't know, should I not be eating this? Should I be eating this? And that alone is that just activated a stress response. And so, I feel like we have been programmed and conditioned as a society to think busy equals success. And in order to be successful, you have to live this incredibly busy, hectic, you know, life in order to reach those goals. And I really feel that we've been trained and programmed to trade our time for money. So that hourly payment schedule, rather than really trying to work smarter and allowing a little more free time for true self-care. And the other thing that I think people that are very holistically based will get into is that they're doing all the self-care to where it actually is more of a chore on their list than true
mm,
self benefit. And so I think that's what you get into. And again, this was my story as well. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone else. It's just the story that I hear so often and can relate to. And I think too, we're operating in a system currently, we're so unbalanced. I'm so grateful for, holistic and functional and natural providers, but I think at the same time we can be equally guilty of like the extremism of like the traditional setting versus the holistic. And it's like a battle, and it doesn't need to be. And so I think everybody has their own place and their role, but you've got some traditional providers that I used to go head to head with because, I initially, when I first started in functional medicine, I was solely working with autoimmunity. And I would run genetic panels. I would run 2-day comprehensive stools. I would run full hormone panels. I would run a lab that's called an organic acids test. And so I would have this full picture of their underlying root cause. And yet I would have let's say IBD, irritable bowel disease. And I would have a GI doc that's putting them on an immunosuppressant that's targeting a specific inflammatory pathway that I can show them that's their only working pathway. Like,
Mhm.
don't target that one. Like, this pathway is working efficiently. That's not the problem. And so, anyhow, but the inability to be able to work together was always very difficult. Now, and then they would tell my client, oh, it doesn't matter what you eat, just go and eat McDonald's. It's fine. This is an autoimmune condition. It has what you're eating is not going to have any influence on your autoimmunity. It is what it is. It's genetic. You've got it. You're always going to have it, which is not true. But then you've got the other extreme, and it's the providers that are like, no, you have to be on this strict diet and you've got to do, all this breath work and all this exercise. And, and that creates stress because now all of a sudden, for me, I was being identified as this condition that I had. And if I didn't do this strict diet, I'd beat myself up if, I wanted to go have dinner. And then all of a sudden I became the person that was like, oh, well, I can only have lettuce and your chicken. What are you seasoning it with? Okay, can you bring me some lemon so I can, that's not fun. It's not fun to be that person. So anyhow, I think that we've got these extreme situations, and then you put that, like, from a natural perspective, you put that type of extremism to a perfectionist and type A, and they're like, I'm doing everything perfect, but it's not working.
Mhm.
And what they're
Oh,
not doing is relaxing.
right. Yeah, and really taking that time to restore.
Right.
Yeah, I know that, having struggled with eating, so I don't know. What would say? I'll just call it disordered eating, like in high school, and then a little bit later. I mean, I would still say I can struggle with some disordered eating, um, and but in high school, I can clearly remember, writing every single calorie down
Mhm.
and exercising like a maniac, just over
Right.
exercising.
Yeah.
I sought professional help with a therapist who focused on some of this, but just the stress, I would be so upset if I did not meet my self-created goals.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah, to the point which, I I would physically harm
Mm,
by hitting myself.
yeah.
And so but just the stress alone of creating that, and it can be stressful when you're trying to do every single thing. I think I've found a little bit more of a way to like live in that moderation. Even though, like, knowing like I feel better off the gluten, but when you're told hypothyroid, like get rid of all gluten and dairy, it's tough. I don't always eat gluten and dairy free.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, Monday night I went out and got pizza. you know, because we were going to watch my son's first basketball game, and that's what we were going to do because I want to enjoy.
Because you're a human being.
I'm a human being. That's right.
You're a human being. And here's the bottom line. And and honestly, it's the hardest thing to teach people that, especially people that when your personality is part of the problem, that is who you are, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
like, and again, this is where the yoga comes into play because there's the first obstacle to growth is ignorance. or the
Mhm.
lack of awareness. And so, really trying to teach them how they are playing a large role in this. And I think that um, it's important to recognize Duke and Etna paired up. They did a wonderful study. It was a long time ago, but it is a great study. And they looked at the relationship between health, happiness, and productivity. And they found that it's not just a direct, it's indistinguishable. You cannot have your health without your happiness. It's
Mm.
impossible. And so when we start to get into the healing process, I think that it's really important to consider that. As a provider, I know that I do. Luckily, I had to walk the walk to recognize I'm never going to put my clients on a strict and rigid treatment or meal plan. I was 52 days in and I ate organic and I ate incredibly healthy. But even like you're saying, so I had Hashimoto's, and that was one of my conditions. And then I also had vitiligo, that was another.
Mm. Mhm.
And so the thing of it is that once I went on that strict meal plan where it's like you can't have nightshades, you can't have all these things, I was literally depressed and anxious, and I've never been depressed and anxious a day in my life. But it literally
Mhm.
it took my happiness away. Because while I had very few vices, I think we all have vices, and that's what gives us our happiness. And so when you strip that away from someone, you take away their happiness and who they are, then it's really hard for them because now everything's a trigger. Everything, like every
Mhm.
little thing is creating a stress response even more
Mhm.
so. So I tell all of my clients at the end of the day, I'm going to personalize your care plan for you, but I can have you on the best meal plan, the perfect supplementation regimen, the best exercise protocol. We're breathing, if you're not managing your stress,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. If you're stressing over whether this is the right thing for you to eat, is this compliant with my meal plan? It doesn't matter because you just activated your sympathetic nervous system. You're stripping blood flow away from your gut. It's not a time to rest, relax, digest, and absorb. It's a time to
Mhm.
run or fight. You don't have blood coming to the gut. So it really doesn't matter what you're eating. You're not going to properly digest and absorb it the way that you need to. So, and then you throw happiness in there. So for the people that are really doing everything right and still not getting results, my question then is, are you happy? And most
Mhm.
of them, that's like the moment of tears. So,
Right. You have to, yeah, and I think about that. And then you have to be willing to even acknowledge that there is maybe that unhappiness there. You're going, going, going. You're doing all the correct things. You're super mom or super dad. Everybody's, you know, PTA this, uh, you know, softball coach here, whatever, right?
yeah,
Baseball, dad, whatever. I'm just throwing, but you get my drift, right? Like
yeah,
all the things,
absolutely.
running from pillar to post and all these other things. And then, but still, and that's, I see a lot of parents doing it. Like I was talking to a dad today. My kids are grown. They're 20 and
Mhm,
23. We didn't do as much of this stuff. And if I'm honest, some of it was because we couldn't afford it. So there was
mhm.
no travel ball for us.
Yeah,
We did what was available through school.
yeah,
There was not a bunch of extra. So whatever was included at school was what they got to participate in. So I don't feel, but like my sisters are having, it's this, it's that, it's all over the place. It's extra private coaching. It's you know, like I said, PTA mom, brownie troop leader, all taking on every role you can while trying to do all of these things. And then I also think, which, for me, yoga, I think I teach a little bit of yoga still. When I tell people it really, the definition means to unite with source,
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with being flexible
At all.
at all.
At all.
And those movements are just one, limb of the eight limbs. I still don't think it's been so westernized here. I
It
think it's
is. You're
often
exactly
missed.
right.
Um, but that you can't be aware when you are that distracted and that producing, if that makes sense. It's almost like constant distractions so that you don't even
Yeah.
know what's going on internally.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I feel so we were the parents that were doing it all, not the PTA. I tried.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was there back there,
But
a little bit trying to be involved at school, like the parties and
yeah, yes, back elementary school, yes, but then, however, though my kids were, involved in a lot of the sports, and we stopped participating. We
Mhm.
did the club ball, we did the national level teams, we did the gymnastics and the cheerleading, um, and we decided as a family, and it just kind of synced up naturally, but both of my kids stopped participating at the same time.
Mhm.
And the amount of creativity that exploded in both of them. We had them so maxed out that they didn't have time. But by the time that you spend 8 hours at school and then, 2 hours at practice, and then you've got homework, I mean, they didn't have any extra bandwidth to have a space of creativity. And so when we said, you don't have to play sports, and in fact, I mean, there came a point where it was just like, you know, we're we're just doing this for fun. Like, we're not trying
Yeah.
to do this for, a college scholarship. We're just here to have fun. So when you're not having fun with it, it's time to
Mhm.
step away because we're spending bukus of money and we would rather not do that. So
Mhm.
we'd rather spend money and to see both of my kids pick up other activities like, guitar and golf and, all the different things, but also to just have the ability to sit down and not feel guilty about sitting
Mhm.
out on the back porch and just again connecting with nature. So we're trying to instill a little bit more of those type of behaviors because I think again there's a certain level of programming that I think that we've all gotten into to where that busy equals success and you're trying
Mhm.
to keep up with everybody else. And I know, I'm sure you kind of feel this way too. On my days where I'm not busy as a business owner, I'm like, I got to find more clients. Like, I've got
Mhm.
time. I could go for a walk. I can soak in the tub if I want. But like my brain goes fear, like you're not doing enough, you should be doing more. And so it's really it's a certain level of conditioning that I think that we've grown up in to recognize that often the best medicine is stillness and presence when you're in
Mhm.
constant inertia and movement. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think that I've I've had more time to do that, with the kids older for sure.
mhm,
Um, than when they were smaller.
right.
But yes, I can absolutely go into that space of fear. And I do think so much of it is about the programming, that productivity, whether you're, a high powered attorney or someone, in the corporate world, or whether you're, a mom or dad at home.
Mhm.
It's just this constant need to be busy that, um, creates, and I guess you probably see this just like underlying, right? I think I remember in a course I took, the gal was talking, whether it's a wedding or whether it's a death in the family, right? The physiological
Responses.
is the same,
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
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 But and so I think, and then, because so many people will tell you they're not stressed, but then I've also heard that, certain foods alone could create a stress response in the body if your body is not. I don't know your thoughts on that.
I'll be honest with you. This is my thing. I so okay. We have to also talk about like our food supply has been greatly contaminated. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So let's preface it with that. However, I don't think that food is usually the problem. And so I'll share with you like a client that has been working with another provider and they run food sensitivity tests all the time, but they don't run
Mhm,
any other test. And they just, by the time that they get to me, they're only eating 5 foods and they've got so much anxiety about what is going to happen if the next test, I can't now eat this one. The
mhm,
problem with that is that that's just a sign of leaky gut and
mhm,
you still have or the permeability of the gut, you still have to get
mhm,
to the underlying root cause. It's usually not the foods. I will say the foods when you are in an inflamed state or you have permeability of the mucosal cells, then of course you're going to have food that's not digested appropriately and flows over through those open gates, flows into the bloodstream. Your immune system's going to do its job. It's going to tag it with an IgG antibody because it doesn't belong there. And so all of a sudden
mhm,
you're now sensitive to that food and it can create, whether it's a mast cell response, it can create some type of inflammatory response. So it happens, but it's usually not the problem. I think too
mhm,
many people put weight on this food's bad. Oh, you got autoimmunity? No nightshades for you. And I
mhm,
disagree with that. I eat,
mhm,
again, I've healed my autoimmunity. I had full blown Hashimoto's. I'm no longer on any type of thyroid medicine. They said you can't do that. I also healed my vitiligo. I did all the light therapy in the beginning, spent thousands at a dermatologist. It did nothing but blister my skin. They told me, oh, you've got to keep all of your vitiligo spots coated in sunscreen and it can never see sunlight. I healed mine through sunlight and allowing the sun to burn the skin, the same
mhm,
way that their lasers were burning my skin, and
mhm,
it naturally started to repigment. So, I think that food is typically not the problem. I think
mhm,
it's the glyphosate that we've sprayed all over the food. I think it's all the chemicals and the heavy metals that we've dumped into our soil.
mhm,
So, our plants are cellular living things. And when they absorb the arsenic or the mercury or the lead from the soil, now the plant is contaminated.
mhm,
And so I think it's just a very confusing world that we live in. And I think that we're living in also, unfortunately, I mean, I think to date, the US still only bans 30 chemicals. I mean, that's
mhm,
just it's gross. I mean, like the fact that there's so much, even the personal care products that we use, and they can hide anything behind the word fragrance or natural. And that's
mhm,
the thing. There's so much greenwashing going on, and you're spending extra thinking that you've got a high quality product, but then they've hidden some of their ingredients that are known carcinogens or what have you. So anyhow, typically, I mean, I have a garden, which I'm fortunate enough to grow my own food. for the majority of it because I got sick of
Mhm.
spending so much money in the grocery store. And if you buy organic, then half the time, like your berries are already molded and they've sat there for so long that they're just, so depleted in nutrients themselves. So I think if we could get back to like community farming and growing our food, that we would find that we've got a lot less
Mhm.
issues. But
Mhm.
we've got fast food, we've got sodas, we've got, you know, we're sugar. I mean, sugar is
Oh,
terrible.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know this year it seems like because we do love blueberries. And when the kids were smaller, we would trek up to Bryant's Blueberries and try to, pick our own. And I would pick quite a few. And I know that, we picked apples this year and we did go to Huber's. I know they spray, but
Mhm.
it's still my kids have this experience. We had a dehydrator, and when they were small, we would bring them home and dehydrate or freeze or make different
Yeah,
products with
emotional.
but I mean, yeah, the berries have been in terrible shape
Terrible.
this year.
I mean, I tell my
And
clients, don't waste your money on it. Like, go buy the frozen organic, because I mean, with berries, you do want to buy those organically. And
yeah.
so it's like buy them frozen, they're flash frozen. You're going to get more nutrients from that and throw them in smoothies because it's really hard to find good quality.
Yeah, it is. That's been a little bit disappointing. I know I've been, we buy a half a cow at a time.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, I feel really good about that. And then we go to the
Absolutely.
market, the farmer's market when we can. We did grow a bunch of tomatoes. We had a lot of success with tomatoes this year, but unfortunately, we rent
Mhm.
and our landlord sprays no matter what. I mean,
Exactly. Yep.
so it's
I mean,
just,
my neighbors do. So I feel you. I'm like out there, I want to put a tarp up
yeah.
like all
And
around the garden.
but
But
I
I
do
mean,
know that they've been, vine ripened.
yeah. So you've still got the electrical, that's another big thing that I kind of can geek out about is um the grounding quality, but like when you grow your own food and eating food that's in season with where you live. So
Mhm.
it's matching the same sun that you're getting in the circadian rhythm and the electrical charge of all of our cells, because I think that we are all very, our cells are lacking a lot of charge. And when they get like that, where they don't have enough charge, now they can't absorb. It doesn't matter sometimes how many supplements you take. If your cells aren't correctly charged and you've got enough polarity there, it's not going to get absorbed into the cell itself. So,
Mhm.
and then people are walking around. For me, it was my issues with my autoimmunity never came in the form of inflammation. It came in the form of oxidative stress. So free
Mhm.
radicals that are floating around and not having enough hydrogen ions to neutralize those free
Mhm.
radicals to get them converted into the form of water to get those processed out. So I think that even being vine ripened and trying to control the system as much as possible is far better than eating like a non-organic tomato.
Mhm. Well, and one that's been sitting on the grocery store shelf for who knows how long.
Right. And got shipped over from China. So
Right. Mhm. Yeah. So I know I want to talk, if you're okay with it, a little bit about um like I know that it's difficult to I know that you can run some labs, right? You can request labs.
oh yes.
And I know that like it can be difficult to get labs drawn at your doctor's office
It
oftentimes.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
But that also, and this is something I hear a lot, is I got my labs drawn, everything looks great.
Yeah. All the time.
And they walk away
But they're like, I
and
feel like crap. I feel like
feel
shit.
like crap. They're fatigued. They have
Yeah.
digestive distress. Um, they can't lose weight. But the doctor said, I'm fine. My labs look great. Now, I have a little bit of functional medicine, just enough to be dangerous. But I do know that, there are markers that should suggest, right, potential downstream or, down
Mhm.
the line
Absolutely.
things coming that we could potentially like maybe even stop or reverse in their tracks before we get a full-blown diagnosis. So, um, can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I know you all look through a different lens. Functional
Absolutely.
medicine looks through a different lens. And I guess I really want the audience to understand that, like, that their doctor may be missing pieces. I'm sure their
Absolutely.
doctor's good. It's just that their doctor can't. Like Joe has MS. That's my partner.
Mhm.
And that neurologist refuses to run any real labs. She
Mhm.
will only do B12 and vitamin D.
Mhm.
Despite talking with various people about MS and what labs should we request, but unless he's taking their drugs, which he isn't, they won't run them. And so to me, it's mind blowing. And then his PCP wouldn't run vitamin D at all.
I so that's what blows me away. And like, so actually with MS, so vitamin D is not necessarily the functional, it's definitely important. And he's going to want his to be way high
Hmm.
because the functional marker for MS is parathyroid hormone. And when you drive vitamin D really high, you drive parathyroid hormone low. And that's what will activate interleukin and spit out those T helper 17 cells that are creating the immune system confusion. But aside from that, I hear what you're saying. We deal with this all the time because I am cash based. I luckily have access to all labs at this point through a third a company called Rupa, which I use because they've got physicians on staff in all states. And so I can put a request in and have a physician sign off on it. And then my clients get direct access labs. So it's their labs. And I
Hmm.
think we're getting a little bit more freedom. In most states, there are some that are controlling that. However, when it comes to blood work, that it's my biggest complaint because what I do is I mean, my goodness, when what we were talking about before we jumped on this podcast is the cost of premiums for insurance. You're
Hmm.
paying most on average, most families are paying roughly 20,000 to 28,000 in premiums per year for that to literally cover very little. So
Hmm.
it's like you're putting a big bulk of your income into the system for it to not really pay for anything. And usually that's a high deductible plan that you don't meet. So technically you're paying for everything out of your pocket anyway. And then but what I do is because I'm cash, is I tell my clients, like, hey, if you want to go through your primary care provider and get insurance to pay for this, ask them for a full, let's say, thyroid workup. They will come back to me and they will have one lab marker, and it is TSH, and TSH measures pituitary, not thyroid. So, yes, it is the stimulating hormone to have the thyroid release it, but it does not tell us whatsoever what the actual active thyroid hormone is doing. And so that's kind of my biggest complaint is the limited, it's like they don't want to do the full picture. And so
Hmm.
you're missing pieces. And um same situation with this, with diabetes or pre-diabetes.
Mhm.
You have to look at the whole circadian rhythm, and including a fasting insulin that never gets ran,
Mhm.
including leptin. Leptin is really the precursor to all of the situations. So leptin is stored in your fat cells, and it's what, when we're sleeping at night, it's what triggers the hypothalamus and says, hey, we're safe, we can go into fat metabolism mode.
Mm.
But when you've been in fight or flight, or you're constantly starving yourself, your body says, nope, we're in a famine. We got to hold on to all that fat. Just hold on to it. Store it around the waistline because that's where we can access it really fast. But they don't look at the full picture. They'll just run, a fasting glucose, an A1C, and depending on what those numbers are, which just shows you a very small picture. But what we have to remember, and I built insurance for years, what we have to remember is that our system, our traditional system, is not designed to cure or heal. We don't have a single CPT code. So, first, you've got to have an ICD 10 code in order to run labs. So, you've got to have a diagnosis to run
Mhm.
labs and then to
Mhm.
do the treatment. But our treatments are only for management of symptoms. So they don't really care. It's not that they don't care. And again, I wanted to, I don't, this is not attacking the traditional docs because they really have their hands tied. There
Mhm.
is no
Mhm.
tort reform in the United States. So therefore, if they deviate from a plan, they literally can get sued for malpractice.
Mhm.
So they have to follow the rules, and that's how the system is set up. So it's not really their fault, but the system is not designed to find the why behind your
Mhm.
condition. The system is designed to manage the symptoms, to give you a name for it. Like IBS, that's one that I lose my mind over. IBS is BS. It's non-existent. IBS is literally the diagnosis you're given when all of your labs come back fine, normal, but you have chronic constipation or chronic diarrhea.
Mhm.
It is literally, I don't know. So we're going to call it IBS. So, anyhow, I
Yeah.
like to do other tests aside from blood work, though. I think that blood work is good for monitoring downstream after we really understand the why
Mhm.
behind what is really going on. So ideally, and I try to work with everybody, whether you've got a limited budget or whether you've got a large budget. So I try to be very conservative when it comes to lab testing. Now, I've done enough labs throughout my career to know the likelihood of what I'm going to see, but ideally, my favorite lab to run is an organic acids test. And this is easy to administer, but basically it gives you the biggest bang for your buck if you want to see really all the systems and blocked pathways. And so many providers will go, after they're seeking to rule out or rule in a specific diagnosis. Whereas for me, the healing actually occurs by what pathways are the most involved and blocked. How do we support that for the healing process? It doesn't matter about the label that it's given. So that's
Mhm.
why I for most of my clients, I'm going to start with an oat, and it gives you a full panel of gut dysbiosis. All disease starts in the gut. You cannot heal hormones without addressing the gut, period. If you're not properly digesting and absorbing your amino acids, your micronutrients, you're going to have imbalances. Your little puppy.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, so is this considered the Dutch?
No, I do love the Dutch. That's
Okay.
a hormone. It does the Dutch. pulls some organic acids at the
Okay.
end of it. But a Dutch is a great way to look at hormones, why I love it, and where traditional medicine will usually only pull, like, if you wanted to take a look at your hormones, you go to your OB and you say, I'm not having a consistent cycle, or I'm constantly having a cycle, then
Mhm.
they're going to run your E2, your progesterone, your testosterone, your DHEAS, maybe an LH and an FSH, and that's going to be it. So that shows you production, right? That shows you
Mhm.
what that hormone is in that moment in time.
Okay.
And whereas the Dutch, it's going to show you production and metabolism. So is it a production issue, or are you metabolizing the hormone too quickly? Because the treatment process for those are vastly different. And it even breaks it down on the Dutch. It'll break it down: liver detox phase 1, liver detox phase 2. So that way you really know where the leak in the system is and how to support that. So I love the Dutch. It's, in my opinion, it's an expensive lab. And so for someone like me, um, I'll, so when I finally got to the root of my problem, of my
Mhm.
two different autoimmune conditions, I had flatlined my adrenal glands, and I would have not even told you I was tired or fatigued. I had
Mhm.
no cortisol output. And when
Mhm.
that happens, you lose what's called your cortisol awakening response. And
Mhm.
that is 30 minutes after waking, you get this spike in cortisol. And that spike is what triggers your thymus gland to start self filtering. And so it will say, okay, which immune system cells have become confused and are targeting your self, and which
Mhm.
ones are still working appropriately. And so when that you don't get that cortisol awakening response, it's you're a ticking time bomb until you get autoimmunity,
Mm.
because you're putting your body under a lot of stress. Now, in addition, when you flatline cortisol, which is a pretty not a good scenario, because now all of a sudden your blood pressure is going to plummet, your brain's not going to get the oxygen that it needs, and you're going to essentially die, right? So your body, which is designed, just it's a marvelous design. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. It has a backup mechanism, and it says it's not time for you to reproduce. You're not
Mm.
thriving as a
Mhm.
human being. I'm going to come up here, I'm going to still from progesterone, I'm going to shut off your sex hormone production. So at age 35, I had flatlined. I had no estrogen. I had no progesterone. I was flat. And, but then again, like, even backing up even more, the other thing that I had going on was a terrible case of SIBO. So small
Mm.
intestinal bacterial
Mhm.
overgrowth. And when I mapped that onto a timeline, I had had that since I was 8. Again, going back to personality, going back to and to bring a little genetics into this equation, is that I have a polymorphism. It's comped, our comp gene, and
Mm.
mine is slow. And so what that gene does is it neutralizes norepinephrine and epinephrine, our stress response from our sympathetic nervous system. So once I activate my stress response, I have a slow turn off switch. So stress stays active in my body for a longer period of time. That
Mm.
also, I'm a looper because of that slow comp. So I'm going to worry and loop back through past conversations. And so, boom,
Mm.
reactivating. I
Mhm.
just keep it going, not
Right.
even recognizing. So, all the while, blood flow's stripping away from my gut. It's just setting me up for dysbiosis. So, I
Mm.
had that starting at the age of 8, just chalked it up. "Oh, I'm just a gassy kid, that's all it is." At
Yeah.
8, they hospitalized me, they were gonna do exploratory surgery, didn't know what the pain in my gut was coming from, but regardless, I had gone most of my life without properly digesting my proteins. So
Mm,
I had so many amino acid deficiencies and, and that was the one thing with my first functional medicine provider that I started to work with when I got autoimmunity. I was like, I'm taking over 30 supplements, but I'm
mm,
always deficient every time that you run my blood. Why
mm,
am I not absorbing?
mhm,
And that was the answer. So I really like to look at the full picture when I'm working with someone. However, if I'm working with a limited budget, we're going to run an oat and then we're going to follow up with some blood work, which is very affordable. So that's a benefit. Most of my clients now, if they have a high deductible plan, they'll just opt to run labs through me because we can get them so much cheaper.
mm.
I don't charge them extra for it,
Yeah.
and they don't have to pay an office visit, and they just go right into LabCorp, get their blood or Quest, and get their blood drawn, and that's it.
So then, okay, so the organic acids test, is that a urine test? That is a urine test, okay.
It is.
Mhm,
So it's metabolites that spill over into the urine
mhm,
that you wouldn't typically see. And so and in an abundant amount. So that means that with any chemical reaction, you have like A plus B equals C, right? And so you would expect C to spill over into the urine. But if you've got B flowing over, you've got a block that's not occurring the way that it needs to. And that's typically from an intracellular perspective. So it really gives you a lot of good insight. So the other thing, obviously, I do a lot of gut and mind work.
mhm,
And so it shows you real time output of neurotransmitters. So we get to see what norepinephrine, epinephrine are doing, what dopamine's doing, what
mm,
serotonin's doing. So then that way we can say, okay, we really have to get control. A lot of times, most neurotransmitters are converted in the gut
mhm,
and through the methylation pathway. And so methylation is one that's often overlooked.
mhm,
And then that makes us much more susceptible to like chemical toxicities and things like that if you have like an MTHFR genetic mutation. But um, with the oat, you get to see you get to see liver detox, methylation, you get to see real time neurotransmitter output, you get to see nutritional markers from an intracellular perspective. So,
mm,
vitamin C, your B vitamins, different things like that. But you also get to see the way that your cells, are actually metabolizing your fats and your carbs and the inside of your mitochondria and exactly what's
mm,
happening. Because a lot of times we have mitochondrial dysfunction. And if your mitochondria can't produce ATP or energy to drive any cellular process, then that's going to create a whole systemic effect. And eventually it's going to lead to a disease.
mhm. So you um help people, I don't want to, what would be a good word? Dig to the deeper root cause of
That's right.
said symptoms or list of symptoms versus, I mean, some really want a diagnosis, but I don't know how often
I
that's truly needed.
I honestly I can tell you, I mean, and I'm cautious as I say this. I just want to say I've worked with a lot of clients like with MS.
Mhm,
And one in particular was non-ambulatory when we started, and she had a special needs child, and I mean it was a really hard bad situation. And
mhm,
um she had, she was diagnosed by the plaques in the brain. And
mhm,
um now We did a major we got to the underlying root cause for her. We had to do a major detox. I mean, months and months and months and months. It was hard. It was hard.
Mhm.
Um, and in the end, her symptoms resolved. She's now ambulatory, living a very normal life.
Mhm.
If she goes and gets a MRI, CT scan, it's going to show plaques in the brain, or
Mhm.
MRA. It's going to show plaques in the brain. And so that's where I think that it's very important to look at the cells and the cellular
Mhm.
patterns
Mhm.
rather than just trying to get a label.
Mhm.
Because even at the end of the day, just re-supporting
Yep.
those cells and giving them back what they need is so important. So for me, yes, I'm never diagnosing anything.
Mhm.
What I'm doing is I'm evaluating symptoms. I'm
Mhm.
doing advanced testing to find underlying root causes. I'm
Mhm.
supporting the body, whether there's always some level of detox, whether it's gut dysbiosis that we're trying to get rid of or toxins, and then resupplying the deficiencies and also reconnecting like sunlight,
Mhm.
good clean water,
Mhm.
grounding with
Mhm.
nature. It's really, I think that we've evolved a little too quickly.
Mhm.
We've got
Mhm.
these phones in our face 24/7. Like, we've dumped a bunch of chemicals that we did no safety testing over from a health perspective
Mhm.
into our environment. And we live on
Well,
fast food and
well, and so many people spend so much time inside.
yeah,
They
yes,
don't get that
under
natural
LED
sunlight.
lights.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
I
So I
agree.
know that you have, I want to make sure you have a program online. I know you
I
see people
do.
virtually. So,
Yes, yes. So I've been treating clients virtually since 2018, and I operate in several different ways. Kind of our hero program, so to speak, is an 8 week program, an 8 or a 12-week program, just depending. If I sense that there's a lot of detox that will be involved, then that's more of a 12-week time frame. And what we do is we do lab testing to unveil what your underlying root cause is. Then we personalize and we're set up. I'm set up in a way that gives my clients high level of access to me. So as you're going through the process, you don't have to do it alone. We have weekly group calls where you're in a community setting, but you also have your individual sessions, and we have a chat feature too. So many of my, especially my younger crowd, they love the chat. Like they're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to text you. And so but it's basically just a HIPAA compliant way that we can communicate back and forth. And that really helps because when you're going through the healing process, a lot of times you've got questions that are like, this symptom popped up. And rather having to keep it in your brain space and worry about if it's significant or if it's not, they just get to drop it right in the chat and we answer. So that is, yeah, and we really, focus on results, and it's where we need to go as a nation. I'm not sure how to get there, but I'm definitely determined to try to help pave the way for it.
yeah, I love that. I think it's really important. I definitely, I mean, we need to see something shift, uh, in the health of our general public.
Yes, it
Um,
has to. And at this stage, we should be reversing back. We should literally be aging in reverse. And yet we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing our youth are getting sicker quicker.
mhm.
It's we have to start asking questions. There has to be reform. Like we have to make healthcare more affordable.
Mhm.
It is it's it's insane, but we have to also give doctors the ability, some autonomy back and away
Mhm.
from the insurance. I mean, there's just so much to it that it's hard to really break it down. I think that if we can get back to community is where we start,
Mhm. Mhm.
community co-ops and trying to, like, if we don't start with our food, then it's hard to help everyone, right? And so
Yeah.
making food more accessible and affordable, good food,
Mhm.
accessible and affordable and not contaminated. I mean, there's just so much to it.
Yeah, I know it is, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming.
I get very overwhelmed when I start to think about it all, and a little sad, a little sad.
Yeah, I get I feel blessed, I guess, and grateful, because I've been on this journey for so long, and it's evolved and changed with, new information because um for a really long time I was vegetarian, and then realizing I really needed to eat meat, I changed, I wasn't so set in my ways that I
Yeah,
wasn't unwilling or open to the fact that that was no longer working for my body.
right.
And then it's just been a slow process, and I think the birth of my first child, well, that like um catapulted me forward. And uh but it doesn't have to happen all at once. I remember, we got the reverse osmosis water at home, and I had met this one mom, and I guess Noah was like 18 months, maybe a little bit younger, and I was vegetarian. I thought I was doing all the right things at that time. I was eating this Jif peanut butter. Little did I know it had, partially hydrogenated oils in it. And
We busted. I mean, I it's crazy.
yeah, and I mean, I look back, and I was nursing, and I wasn't sure about milk at that time.
Mhm.
We were not vegan. But I was giving him, I cannot believe this to this day, rice milk.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally am blown away that that's what I was doing. And then I found out about raw milk, and I was driving to Carmel, Indiana to get gallons of raw milk because you couldn't really get it around here at that time yet.
Yeah.
But I just can't believe I just gave him nothing but basically sugar water.
Oh, if I could go back, if I could go back, I would have. And I thought that I was, you just don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah,
I
you
thought,
don't. I mean,
I
but
mean,
there were so many things I was doing right
mhm,
too, but then like it's just been a huge learning curve. But it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. It doesn't
I,
have to, if you can just like, for those out there, just give yourself permission to make the small changes. Don't you
that's
agree?
100%. That's what I tell
Yeah.
everyone. It's progress. And again, going back, it's progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
So I remember I was doing a reel, I was doing a video and I was, showing like my batch prep for the week of like, I was
Hmm.
making salads for myself and my husband. And I was showing people, this is how easy. One person was like, "Ew, are you putting that in plastic?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I mean, this is, yes, I am. It's not more, I mean, I'm doing the best that I can. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have that much storage space for all glass. Like I
Hmm.
have since converted, do still have some plastic in my house, but you do the best that you can. My biggest thing is we are not designed to live in a bubble.
Hmm.
That's why I do maintenance. I mean, I've cleared my systems, but I still do, a monthly parasite moon challenge. I
Hmm.
still do a quarterly liver detox and additional support. And so that's really by the time that I have a client that graduates from me, the ultimate thing, if we've ran their genetics, that's amazing. Then I get to say, hey, these things that you are susceptible to given your genetics. This is what you need to make sure of
Mhm,
in order to minimize that from a
mhm,
lifestyle perspective. So that's
mhm,
awesome. If they can afford to run that, then that's great information. I can say this is the best meal plan for you genetically. This is the
mhm,
best exercise regimen. This is how your body's going to respond best to exercise.
mhm,
And so we can put them on a lifelong plan to then help minimize any future disease.
mhm,
That's optimal. Obviously, that would be great to do that with everyone. We should start with our children. That would be amazing. But obviously, that doesn't work for everyone's budget. But I also put them on, like, you're going to be on a quarterly maintenance plan. And
mhm,
and 1 month out of the quarter, you're going to go back to your treatment plan because you're going to assume that you have weaknesses in the
mhm,
areas of your underlying root cause. There's a reason that you ended up with those.
mhm,
So 1 month out of the quarter, go back and actually treat them. Give them
mhm,
extra support and love
mhm,
because we're not meant to live in a bubble. We can't walk around being paranoid about every single experience and,
mhm.
oh, this person, and we can't control other people, our neighbor spraying or landlord spray. We can't control that. That's
Right.
out of our control. And you can't spend your life obsessed and worrying about it either. So my thing is, do I mean, I typically stay on some type of binder just because I know that my body, how it responds to free radicals and to oxidative stress. So I'll
Mhm,
use a little bit of a binder and to make sure that it's getting any extra chemicals that I can come into contact with.
mhm.
I support my liver. I enjoy organic red wine. I
Yeah.
enjoy that. I like to sit out on my back deck and enjoy a glass of red wine. So everything in moderation. And again, it's about balance because you can't have health without happiness. So
Mhm. Yeah, finding that vitamin, J, the joy.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we
And
have to.
it's missing for so many people. It really is missing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely in that overachiever when you're just trying to go, I think sometimes we can forget that piece altogether. It's not as joyful as we think it is.
mhm. Yeah,
Um, all right. So I know I'm so appreciative of your time today. I believe your website is dnadoc.com, right?
that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Easy.
all that information can be found there. Now, are you on Instagram? I know you're on.
I am.
Okay.
I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. I get a little overwhelmed by my TikTok account.
Mhm.
I did a leptin video and it went crazy. And so anyhow, I get a lot of contacts there and I kind of get overwhelmed by that because I don't necessarily love being on my phone.
Yeah.
But I am on Instagram as well. I can be found on either place.
Okay. Is that going to be DNA Doc too?
It's DNA Doc FM for functional
Okay.
medicine.
Okay. On Instagram.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I want to, and maybe in another conversation, we can dig into some of the other, I mean, I'm 47, some of the, I don't want to say issues, but challenges that arise as both
Yeah.
men and women come into this middle age. Um, I don't know if you work with men too,
I
but
do.
I would love to, you know, dive into both of those
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
topics,
I
maybe on
love that
another time
topic too. Yeah.
in separate
Absolutely.
conversations. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And it was a great conversation.
Yeah, and I look forward to meeting you in person in the flesh.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Uh-huh.
Okay.